Good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. I am Gunnar Eos, and we bring you another episode of the Logical Gamers podcast. With me tonight is BlankaKong, Mr. Esoteric, Hado Wolf, no Zeta Kaiser, unfortunately, but we got a full house pretty much. So today's topic is going to be kind of a different one. We're going to be basically looking at and just giving our thoughts about a video that a popular Monster Hunter YouTuber called Femento recently released. We're going to talk about two of the videos he's released in the past couple days as to the point of this filming, called How I'm Feeling About Speedrunning in Rise and Sunbreak After 500 Hours, All Hope Is Lost. Obviously, these videos will be in the description, and we encourage you guys to check it out. Just be respectful, be kind. We're not here to cause a flame war. We're just having a discussion. We're all long-time Monster Hunter players and fans in this group. We've been with Monster Hunter for a while, and we're just discussing a fellow hunter's perspective. So that being said, uh, we'll just kind of break it down with his first video, How I'm Feeling About Speedrunning in Rise. Basically, a quick synopsis is he discusses the Monster Hunter Rise speedrunning community, how its tiers, how it's broken up, and how he feels about it. Basically, TLDR, he doesn't really see a point to speedrunning anymore. He's not interested in it. Between the drama in the speedrunning community, the fact that there's a million and one different categories in the speedrunning community, and he feels that the grind isn't worth it, that it's all samey, it's all same old, and it's turned him off from the game. Now, before I break it off to my constituents here, I just have to preference, I'm not a speedrunner. I see speedruns, I respect them, I think they're cool. To see someone take down a tempered or a apex or whatever deviation you want to use elder dragon in 4 minutes is impressive, but that's not why I play Monster Hunter. And that's kind of what you the audience are going to get from our overall opinions. So I rambled enough. I'll give my thoughts on the second go around. So I'm going to leave it off to any one of you gentlemen who want to pick it up. We've all saw the video. Just thoughts, opinions, concerns, go.
I'll start. So, first of all, this guy complains a lot, and he's very aware of it because he even calls himself out on the video numerous times. He complained about the amount of categories in speedrunning. He complained about the drama. He complained about just the design decisions as far as like how to grind and like how Capcom kind of constructed the game, the end game, and how to like get decorations and such. Which I understand. It's his opinion. He's certainly entitled to it. Um, and that's fine. He can feel that way, but it felt like very just he complained a lot, so it was kind of hard to listen to. If I'm being honest with you, but I get it. Um, I am not a speedrunner. I have no desire to be a speedrunner, but I do respect people who do. I think it takes a certain type of player to actually do that, to play a game that way and to like master it. And I don't have that ability or that the focus. Like I just don't have the desire to like play a game that way. So it's hard for me to sympathize for some of his complaints regarding speedrunning. However, I mentioned this in some past Monster Hunter podcast topics. Monster Hunter will never satisfy all of their player types because it's grown to a point where um it's no longer feasible to satisfy the overall audience of Monster Hunter because the audience has grown so much in the last like 15 years, right? So when we started playing Monster Hunter, it was all about the experience. It was all about just hunting with your group and doing something together. It was about the cooperative experience. That's what Monster Hunter has always been for me. And it still is to this day. That's what it's about. That's what makes the game so special. And I think the game for me, and I think some of you might agree, that it's lasted this long because of its because of its co-op offerings. and it means a lot to me because of that, right? If it was a single player only game, I don't think I would have loved it as much as I do in the alternate universe. So I play Monster Hunter for very different reasons than somebody like what's the guy's name?
Uh, excuse me
Memento.
for pronunciations, but I say it as Femento.
Memento. So for him, like he gets a rush from speedrunning, right? And that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not. I don't think Capcom designed the game to be sped run per se. Like that's not something they put as much thought into, right? It's like Pokemon Nuzlocking. Pokemon Nuzlocking is not like the guys who develop Pokemon games don't care. Like they don't think about Nuzlockers at all. They're like that's just a niche thing on the side. We're designing the game for what most would consider the normies, the casual crowd, or the competitive scene, as far as like competitive as far as like actual PvP battles. But like the Nuzlockers, like that's just a side thing. And speedrunners are kind of like that's kind of what speedrunners are in the Monster Hunter community, as far as I'm concerned, right? There's not many of them. There's a few, and there's a scene for it, but it's very small compared to like the overarching population of Monster Hunter players. So, um, all that to say, I can't I can't comment on a lot of the stuff he spoke about speedrunning because I don't care like at all. You know, if there's speedrunning drama, cool, like whatever. Like I'm just gonna move on. And as far as like him feeling bad for certain speedrunners for not getting attention, that's just the way it is, dog. Like Monster Hunter itself wasn't getting a lot of attention until just recently. So, you know, it is what it is. Like things are popular and some things aren't. Like get over it. Um, it is what it is. So that's my overall takeaway. Maybe I'll have more to say as we continue to speak, but it was hard to listen to that video if I'm being honest with you.
All
Yeah,
right.
I definitely can agree with Kong in a lot of senses where, like it was a lot of you'll never get this or you'll never get that or this will never happen or it's a trap or like I understand that, we all have our complaints and even about video games that we do love, and a part of the complaint comes from the love of that video game. Um, I was like me and Gunnar was talking earlier about, another video game that I admit is a great video game, and I feel like everyone who have the console that the game is on should own it if they're into JRPGs. But at the same time, I also did a lot of complaining about it too. So in that respect, I see where he's coming from, where, it could just be the love that he have for the franchise, which is where all his complaints are coming from. But the constant amount of it just became like it became more like a complaint video and not necessarily just like putting out your concerns or his concerns, for example. Um, I definitely do agree that these niche play styles like speedrunning or Nuzlocke challenges in video games that's created by the community, it's created by the community, not by the game developers. They're not, I haven't seen or read or watched any interview where a game developer says, yeah, we're taking into consideration of the speedrunners or we're taking into consideration of the Nuzlockers in any franchise because there's more than, everybody speedruns almost every video game. There's a speed run for almost every
Yeah.
video game. Um, but the developers aren't really thinking about that. They're thinking about the longevity of the game or what kind of audience that they're attracting to the game. We as the fans come up with these challenges for ourselves to prolong the video game's lifespan in our own personal interests. So if there's a lot of issues in the Nuzlocke in the speedrunning community, that's because it's a community that has no real government control, or like I won't say government control. Like no, there's it's not governed by any one person. Everybody is putting in their own inputs, and everybody is it's up to the community itself to actually agree that these are the rules that they will go by overall. But it's not necessarily official rules. It's not made up by Capcom. it's not supported by Capcom. So whatever challenges come from that, it's because you have so many people, so many chefs in the pot. Everybody wants to add their own ingredients, and you will get confusion from that. I have tried to speedrun monsters before in Rise, and I've tried to speedrun monsters in World. I'm not good at it. I know I could get if I were to practice, but I'm not going to put in that amount of effort to speedrun a monster. Like I honestly don't have a good time when I play Monster Hunter by myself. I do not enjoy the game when I play by myself. I hate going through the storyline for Monster Hunter because for me, Monster Hunter is a community-based game. So I like to play with other people, even if they're randoms online. I like playing with other people. I like looking at what other people armor sets they use. I like looking at the layered armor they put together. It's just for me, it's just more like, what are the different ideals and individuality that's being brought into the game that I'm playing that I love so much. I love playing with my friends. I think that's the best. That's the most time. That's the most. That's the time where I most enjoy Monster Hunter when I'm playing with my friends. Period.
Yeah.
So speed running for me is not valued in any real way. So while I can understand his concerns in that community because that's his chosen way of prolonging or increasing the longevity of this game, for those who are speedrunners and is having their issues, keep in mind is that you guys they're not going to one specific source and agreeing that this one specific source is going to create the rules to abide by. So if you're going to give that freedom where multiple sources are going to create their own rules, you can either A, pick one of those sources and follow that best suits your playstyle as a speedrunner, or B, leave the scene altogether. So yeah, that's my point of it. Sorry, but speedrunning for me is not what Monster Hunter is about. It's what people of the community created. So therefore, you are going to get a lot of different opinions and point of views of it. Sorry, it's the way of the world. And that goes for those who are exceptionally good speedrunners and just do not get the credit. It's, I've seen it happen many times in different competitive scenes. My brother, for example, to me, I was talking to him earlier, and I feel he's one of the best players in the Pokemon franchises that I've ever seen. But at the same time, he wouldn't get the credit that other large Pokemon YouTubers would get, and he has a channel. And he's not going to get those credit. Why? Because his name isn't out there enough, or people just prefer to stick with the evil they know. So if I know that this big YouTuber is going to give me the content I need, or is going to satisfy my liking into watching other people speedrun, I'm going to go with them 100% of the time. That person who are better at speedrunning than other people, they have to work a little bit harder, and they have to put in that effort to get their name out there so that they can get their recognition. Success is work. Point blank, period. No matter how you put it, whether it's in a video game, life, social status, whatever. If you want to be successful in whatever you put your mind to, it is work. You can't just say, yeah, I could have done this better than this popular speedrunner, but not putting in the work to get your name out there. So the question becomes, what are they doing on why they're not getting the credit? Come on, let's hold each other accountable now. But that's my take on it, at least for the first video. I'm going to let Esoteric speak, and then maybe we can move on to his next video.
Well, I mean, pretty much what I would have to say would derive from what you and Kong have stated. I'd pretty much be sounding like a broken record here, but I will add that trying to force gameplay within a game that is not intended for can be difficult, especially with a game such as Monster Hunter. Now, I will also preface that I'm not a speedrunner. I don't have the discipline nor the time to take on such a role or such an aspect of gaming. It takes a lot of I would say or assume it'll take a lot of discipline and skill to and time to actually execute and perfect. And none of those I have currently in terms of like the time aspect. But again, the thing is with Monster Hunter is that there's way too many variables when it comes to trying to effectively defeat a monster within a timely fashion. Um, Monster Hunter did technically incorporate a mode where it is a speed run, but you're tethered to a certain particular gear. Like when you're doing like the what you call those
Arena quest.
Arena
Arena
your
quest.
quests.
yeah, the arena quest. They give you certain times that you must meet or beat in order to like prove that you're S tier and below or whatever. So they did incorporate it that way, but other side of the game, the other aspect, it's not intended for that. It's intended to see monster, kill monster, carve monster, and potentially get a nice drop from monster. Like it's like playing a slot machine. It's like the lottery, you know what I'm saying, with a little more effort. Um, I, I, I don't know what else to say to this guy. Like, I think he has the right mindset in terms of just not doing it. You know, if it's something that's really making you disgruntled and upset about doing because of what it is and how it presents itself, then just leave it alone. That's all I can say. I can't
Yeah, I
relate.
agree with him. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
like
agree with him on that. Just leave it alone.
yeah, just leave it
Mm.
alone. Which it kind of contradicts the situation because correct me if I'm wrong, but he stated that he does these things to generate builds for people to see, like to put them to the
Yeah,
test.
his mantra is, unlike other potential content creators that just say this armor is the best, this is why you use this piece, that piece, and these accessories, it's the best. He'll say the way he formats his videos is, this is what I think is the best set for Pierce Bowgun, for example, and he'll show you mathematical proof in the field as to why he thinks it's arguably the best. So he does back up what he preaches. He just doesn't throw a set at you and say, wear this and you win every fight. Just a preference.
Yeah, and okay, so that makes perfect sense. And if that's absolutely the goal, then I completely understand because your goal is to showcase your theories, put them into practice. Um, I don't know how the speed running is incorporated in it. I mean, I guess due to the fact that the gear he says is great, that you should be able to subdue the monster more effectively. But I mean, how fast do you want to like kill the monster? Like I'm not sure how much further he wants to push his mission because there's but so much time that you can shave off with killing a monster. At least from what I see when it comes to these speed runs. Um, but yeah, I feel as though that he's pretty much trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Um, you know, Monster Hunter already incorporated the right nut, so to speak, for you to put into that hole, which is the arena quest. And if that's something that you want to do, or that it's something that you can do, then great. But in this particular case, I can't really say. I can't really sympathize for him because I don't know. I have an inkling as to what it entails pertaining to like what you got to do to actually be effective in speed runs, but I really can't sympathize because that's not what the game was intended to do. And you're also playing a game that has again way too many variables. If it was something like Bloodborne where the items that you picked up are assured in terms of like your weapon set, the amount of echoes you get within that game, then that's perfect. Or bare bones Super Mario Brothers, where you only have run, jump, and the power ups, and you find a way to kind of navigate the stages to like get to where you need to go effective and efficiently. But Monster Hunter ain't it. To have to deal with RNG, to have to mod your game to get the effective charms, the effective skills that you want, it's in my opinion, it's too much work. It's I don't know, but
Well, he addresses
again,
that. He mentions that it's unfair, like the RNG or whatever, which is why he mods his game to have god charms, and that's his justification to doing it. Just to be clear, I listen. If you mod your game, I don't. I lose respect for that kind of player personally, because you didn't put in the work. And is it unfair? Sure, but that's a part of the game. So, and another thing he complained about was, you know, small monsters interfering with the speed run and ruining a run. It's like, well, that's a part of the game. Like,
Yeah, that adds to what the developers develop Monster Hunter is to be a world where monsters are in a habitat with other monsters and humans or players or hunters, whatever you want to call them. And those small monsters is adding to that player experience. So because you want to create, or this group of speedrunners want to create this game mode that doesn't really exist in the game, and then complain about the things that the game is supposed to have about it, it doesn't click well with me, because these small monsters, the Ioprays, the Velociprays, the Bullfangos, these are a part of the world of what makes Monster Hunter. These are what, and yes, in the past games, some monsters, few monsters, and I'm talking like it's not even in the past games per se. There are some, I would say before World, the last few games, the small monsters would leave the area, and then they would come back when the big monster zoned. But in Monster Hunter, Freedom Unite, Velociprey was right there with you while that Tigrex was chasing your ass down. They were right there, and BlankaKong has experiences with Ioprays, Vespoids,
dude,
and Big Monster.
these guys already know the fucking story. The most bullshit death I've ever experienced, where I was so angry I wasn't even like aggressive about it. I was just like in a shock. Like I just dropped the fucking PSP. Monster Hunter Freedom, the first one, I went back and I played that, and I was
okay,
fighting the hunt was Green Plesioff or Plesioff, one of those two.
yeah,
In the old jungle, and it was in the big zone with all the big zone with all the trees. Well, Plesioff's zone with the trees. So it's the big lake and then the big
the jungle
the big
area.
jungle area. Well, it's all jungle, but Plesioff's area specifically, the middle of the map. And Plesioff was in the water, and I was, you know, on the field trying to, like, you know, get ready for him or whatever. He's like shooting laser beams or water beams, and Iodrome was a part of the quest, but he wasn't a target. He came in, and then a Vespoid was there. There's a lot of Vespoids in that area. Vespoid stings me. Iopray shoots poison at me while I'm down and paralyzed, and then Plesioff lines up a water beam and kills me. I was just like, the coordination, like, what are the chances of that happening, right? And so that's just a part of the game. Like, it is what it is, and
Because that's what the game was designed to
that's what it
do.
was designed to be, man.
Right.
It's
Right.
man
That's what
versus
not do,
wild.
but be. Right, exactly.
That's
So
it.
a speedrunner shouldn't show frustration over certain aspects that the developers put in for regular or normies, for example, I guess normies like us, to experience
I
about
guess.
Monster Hunter. So if you know if that's an issue that you're going to hold against this particular Monster Hunter game, Monster Hunter Rise, and he said Rise, not so much Sunbreak, and I think his issues with Rise, I think Rise had other major issues that other than what he really did talk about in some cases. Even though there were some things that I can definitely understand where he was coming from as well. But speaking about the speed running part specifically, small monsters is a part of the game, bruh. And that's because they are trying to create a believable or a
A living,
more
Ecosystem.
breathing world.
manageable ecosystem for where these monsters, like I remember in some Monster Hunter games, Like in almost all Monster Hunter games, the big creatures, when they get hungry, they will eat one of the small monsters. Usually it was either the popos, which ended up being the slaggarts, I think they called, and then that ultimately evolved into whatever big meaty creature that we have now. Small meaty creature that we have now.
Yeah, the
But they
herbivores.
always the herbivores, but they've always used the small monsters as some type of substance. It's always added depth to the overall environment and what you're hunting on.
Look at
So
the
it's gonna
opening
be there.
cutscene for the first Monster Hunter game. It's all there. Like that's what the game is. That's what it always has been. But whatever.
Yeah, it's that's what the game is. So you can't create a game mode and then get upset about what the game actually have in it
Or worse,
when you
be
create this
upset
game mode.
that that people aren't watching your content or people aren't engaging in that side of the community. Like it is like you can't force people to to like to like the game the way you like it. It's like sorry man, like it is what it is. And I'm sure he's aware of that. Like the guy seems pretty self-aware of like how he may sound or how he may come off,
Yeah,
which I think is
and
good.
to be honest, because I use because bow guns or small bow guns are light bow guns are my secondary, have become either my third or secondary weapon as of right now. I use his videos for content, and he always gives me good tips. He always gives me reliable builds. He always gives me reliable points, and when I follow the things that he advises, I usually get better results than other um, YouTubers that that I would have listened to or would go to their content for bow gunning. I think he's honestly one of the better content creators for like bow guns because I use him. So that's my personal critique on it overall. But at the
I can
same
see
time, I
that.
can't.
I can see that.
Yeah,
He
I
seems
can't.
very analytical, and that's perfect for like you and
Yes,
Gunner, who are very analytical
yes.
players. Not so much for me because I'm just kind of like I'm all feel. I'm just gonna get out there and see how it feels and see if it makes sense to
Yeah.
me.
Which also makes sense as well, because the thing is about being analytical is that, especially in this particular game, you have to have all the data accessible to you. The issue with speedrunning, however, within this game is the fact that not everything is available to you. So you would have to go outside of your scope to obtain these things. I don't have an issue with speedrunners modding the game to get what they need to do what they need to do, because in order for them to get to that level or that particular mode that they created for themselves, it's going to entail such high level of redundancy. And also, as we all know, that your skill set does not make you does not make you a better hunter. It's your skills that actually do. So I'm not going to knock him for that, because he's just basically fast tracking himself to get to a point in the game where he can do what he wants to do, in a mode that's imaginary, so to speak. But in regards to the whole ecosystem aspect, where monsters intervene and attack one another and they interrupt you, like you guys have said, that's always been a part of the game. I can't knock that. Like, how many fucking bull drones have bulldozed me over and then I got dead because the monster that I'm trying to kill lined up their shot just accordingly for me to die. Like, I'm pretty sure it's happened to all of us. I'm sure it's even happened to speedrunners and who've attempting to get better and better, and it's just something that just messes you up and throws you off balance. Um, Again, with my whole square peg round hole analogy, that's pretty much what Monster Hunter is. And the only way to kind of remedy this is to leave it alone, deal with the skills that you currently have and make the best out of it, or go to the arena quest, because that's what the arena quests were designed for.
Or just play
They're
the older games. Like he said it too. He was gonna go back to 4U. Go do that, dude. Like there are people who play Super Smash Brothers,
I agree with it.
fucking GameCube, the GameCube
Melee,
version, Brawl, Melee.
but
So
melee,
my
yeah.
Brawl is
but
Wii,
my
right?
thing is, yeah,
Yeah.
As well as
Brawl
we.
is Wii. But here's
So
my thing though, with 4U, it has those same things. You're still gonna deal with the variables. You're still gonna deal with the monster ecosystem. It's the same shit. So you
Yeah, but
know,
if for him, for you, gave a better experience in dealing with being a speedrunner and
Hmm.
his overall Monster Hunter gameplay experience.
So
So, I will admit, like, the earlier Monster Hunters, I definitely do enjoy those earlier Monster Hunter games more than enjoy Iceborne and Sunbreak.
yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's because I just personally feel that the more quality of life you add to a video game is the more watered down that difficulty of that video game is going to be. And since people loved or wanted or asked for or petitioned for a shit ton of quality of life changes to the Monster Hunter franchise, this is what you get.
so that is actually a perfect segue to talk about quickly his second video titled Sunbreak Review After 500 Hours, All Hope is Lost. Pretty black pilled from a title as far as titles go, but the reason why I called it a great segue when he mentioned that he would probably be playing Monster Hunter G for you as opposed to Rise and even World is he in his second video, it's not so much about speedrunning anymore. It's about his general thoughts on some of the monsters, which he's pretty harsh. Our boy Espinas gets dunked on pretty hard, just for clarification.
But he
And
loved Malzeno. Shout out to him.
right, so what he talks about is that it seems the game was designed a certain way, and I think that was my problem for a while. I didn't understand, like, wait, if I take this Rajang, for example, and I dodge him the same way I've been dodging him since Monster Hunter Freedom, why is it not working anymore? And then he brought up a really good point, which after I sat down and thought about it and looked at the different arts, I was like, you're right. Because he states that every weapon has a counter. And I looked. That's correct. Every
That's
weapon has
correct.
a form
Yes.
of counter. And
Yes.
that
Yeah.
the monsters were designed around the idea that you are using these counters. So that's why I'm getting hit by moves that for 10 plus years I can dodge with no problem because they designed it to be countered. So I have to agree
Right.
with him on that. I don't like that.
Well, to kind of interject that, and you can say I'm wrong or whatever. I think that was Capcom's way of allowing the monsters to be more organic, and for us to deal with how mechanical we are as a hunter, because it still takes some time, depending upon which weapon you're using, for you to put away and like you know run efficiently and whatnot. I think the counter is just for a means to stay unsheathed and be able to go back to attacking. I think that's what their answer was, because in Rise and in World, the monsters have become even more organic. Before, we had windows of opportunity where we would face the monster on his left side and they'll have 90-degree turns. We barely get that window of opportunity now. So I just think that was their answer.
Well,
Um,
okay, so you
yeah.
say organic, but then he brings up, which I have to agree, he brings up the Gold Rothian Silver Rothalo. That was the first major content release after the base game. And he
Okay.
talks
Hmm.
about that Rathalos will always do his big supernova after
After an
after he
HP
yeah,
threshold.
after he gets into awakening, and that they get status locked, as in paralyzed will no longer work, traps will no
Yeah.
longer work, sleep will no longer work. To me, at that point, it's bleeding into an MMO fight because I raided in Final Fantasy 14 for 7 plus years, and that is exactly how those fights are designed. I'm gonna do this. You can't stop me from doing this. You're just gonna have to live with it. Where you go back to old Monster Hunters, a monster was enraged. Let's say we had a Tiger X that was enraged. When Tiger X gets enraged, he's serious business. But before, we can trap him, we can paralyze him, we can knock him on his ass, and literally beat the shit out of him so he never does anything in that rage mode. To me, that's more organic than the Silver Raphalos going into Kamea Fusion Ha mode and saying, nope, I don't care what you do. I'm going to put on plot armor and you are going to accept the supernova that I do. I have to agree with him on that. And it does take away kind of from like the free form of Monster Hunter when you can script everything. And that was my major problem with the Fatalis fight. The Fatalis fight felt like an MMO fight. Fatalis will always do this at this HP. You have to do this at this HP. You have to use this item, or you can't win. That's an MMO fight.
Yeah.
That's not like Fatalis from back in the day where it's just like, what happened? He flicked his tail and he wrecked your shit. Oh, I didn't know he was gonna do that. He just felt like doing it. So I do agree. There is some like monsters have been kind of programmed to act a certain way, which takes away from some of the randomness
I
and
disagree.
abnormality.
I
Okay.
disagree, and I'll tell you why. This is the problem when you give the player too many fucking powers. You have to soup up everything else in order for the player not to be fucking too dominant. And I think the hunters are too strong. Like I think we have too many tools, and I think those tools are too strong. And
Exactly.
this is exactly why Raphalos has the supernova, and he gets status locked and all this. And
Yeah.
to you know, this is another point I wanted to bring up too. I can remember a time where people were bitching that there wasn't enough of a difference between Silver Raphalos and regular Raphalos. Now there's a huge difference, and now it's like, oh well, this takes away from the feel of monster. It's like, this is what I mean. You can't satisfy everybody because everybody has different desires, and so you just kind of listen. You're either gonna play the game or you're not gonna play a game. And if you like the old games, play the old games, and if you like the newer games, play the newer games. Like it is what it is. But I just
So
wanted to
I
throw that out
definitely
there.
No, that,
I definitely agree in a sense of where the skill binding attacks have definitely become it's the prominent play style of the weapons in this game. Because even as a greatsword user, I do use my skill bind attacks often. What I don't agree with is that the importance of the counter system, right? Like the counter system is there to help players answer situations that they normally cannot react to by putting their weapon away or actually evading. Greatsword users have had this problem from day one. As a greatsword user, since the first Monster Hunter game, I can tell you this has been a problem from day one. I'm swinging my weapon and I cannot answer this monster's attack. Whereas the counter system now gives me that option. So coming from so many years, almost was it almost 15, 17 years now I've been playing Monster Hunter. If for playing Monster Hunter that long and is just now getting an answer to how Greatsword can become a little more defensive, while stay being offensive because it's an offensive weapon. There isn't anything really defensive about a Greatsword, but to get defensive options like the strong arm counter is a godsend. Um, and there was one YouTuber that I used to watch where they overglorified the strong arm counter and made it seem like this is the way you play the game, you know. And again, I do love their content because they do give me good content. Then there's this other YouTuber who is smaller than them, way smaller than them, and he broke it down and made me realize that he's basically he'll put out titles like this is the real way you use greatsword or why you shouldn't rely on strong arm counter and stuff like that. And he made sense. He made sense in why I shouldn't rely on strong arm counter because strong arm counter is a situation. And if you're just countering if you just throw out the counter because you think the monster is going to hit you, you're wasting your time because the monster can then easily do something else. Now you're stuck. Now the counter frames has run up and you're stuck in recovery animation. You're going to get hit, right? So when he and I stood back and then I realized like, okay, I should be using the counter as a form of understanding the monster I'm fighting and in a form of defense. My play style using the strong arm counter has gotten better because he made me realize it differently. And not all counters in this game are equal. Like the strong arm counter is one of the better counters as a greatsword user, but I've also tried the switch axe. The switch axe counter to me is shitty. It's a very it to me it's a bad counter to me. Um, and then you have other strong counters like the charge blade. The charge blade has a pretty strong counter, but the sword and shield doesn't necessarily have a counter. It has an invincible, like it has like a super armor attack that dashes forward. That's what you use as a counter. So they're not all equal. They're really not. You can't say, okay, well, I understand the strong arm, so I can easily jump to dual blades and use the counter for dual blades. No, it's very different. So I definitely understand where he says, like, the game definitely have you rely on these counters a lot, depending on the weapon you're using. But I also feel like at least with the greatsword, I can honestly say as a regular hunter and not someone who cares about speedrunning, as a regular hunter, the strong arm counter is not used nearly as my power sheath attack, which is where the greatsword would throw the wire bug and dash in that direction, putting the sword away at the same time while powering up for their next attack. I use that move 10 more times than I use the strong arm counter in one hunt, whether I'm hunting with myself, by myself, or I'm hunting with others. So I think it's all still situational. Um, and I agree with Kong where he said, if we want these different diversities, diverse, everyone, everyone these different diversities in these monsters, then we're gonna have to take the good with the bad. And the best way they can do it, this is a video game in the end of the day, and it has to be programmed. It gets written into their programming. So if we want the different diversity, either you're gonna deal with Rathalos, Silver Rathalos being um immune to status the whole fight, or you're going to deal with him being immune to status a portion of the fight. And unfortunately, they do have to take a page from the MMO book, which isn't fun. It really isn't fun because now you have to actually, like with MMOs or MMO fights, I had to watch videos before I joined a group, and then like pretty much plea my knowledge on the fight for them to accept me when I was raiding in Final Fantasy 14. And even though I was a dragoon and a reliable physical damage based class, a lot of people still, I'll always get that message. Do you know the fight? Did you know the fight? Did you watch a video? Did you learn the fight? And it's like that kind of like is what's going to ultimately lead into if they keep doing like, HP thresholds for big monsters.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's going again, that's the double-edged sword because we want all this power as being hunters, but we don't want the monsters to become more powerful. But then we'll complain that the monsters are too weak and the game is easy. But then on the flip side of it, if we bump the monster strength up while still maintaining the hunter strength, there's going to be some level of forced difficulty or artificial difficulty that's going to have to be put in place where it's going to challenge the hunter. Like Alatreon in Iceborne was bullshit. That was a bullshit fight. I won't disagree with that. It was a bullshit fight because the whole era of Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter Iceborne, never once did they made it apparent or important to have elemental weapons up until Alatreon's fight.
Yeah, they forced
And
that gameplay.
if I was not an analytical person that I was, or an overthinker that I am, or someone who just loves to make armor sets, I was partially prepared to have elemental sets. I was partially prepared. The rest of us, we needed to make weapons. So we had to go back and fight monsters to fight Alatreon, who was the end game at the moment. And that did seem a little unfair. It did. But that had to be put in place because we want to be super strong and we want super strong monsters. How do you balance that? How do you make the hunter super strong and how do you make the monster super strong to get an actual fight? The monster is going to need some things that is just simply unfair. He's going to need some things that's just simply it's going to need some things that's just simply unfair. And here we are.
I
Not to
mean,
not to mention, like, you mentioned it before, Wolf, and I'm sorry to cut in front of you, Esoteric, but like I got to get this out before I forget.
okay.
Like, this guy is a speedrunner. I think speedrunning takes an incredible amount of skill, an
Yeah.
incredible amount of dedication. I would concede and say that speedrunners are more skilled than like normal hunters because they are playing the game on a different level
Yeah.
that I don't want to play. Like, I don't want to know that much information because it's going to kill the experience for me personally, and I'm going to grow to hate the game. And I'll become like this guy, just complain about small monsters being in the way. It's like, what the hell? Like, that's the part of the game. So he's complaining from a perspective of like a really advanced player, and that's a really, really small minority of the overall community. He's not going to get what he wants, period, because he's the last group. He's a part of the group of people who are Capcom are thinking about the least, straight up. So that's a realization he's going to have to come to, and other speedrunners are going to just have to accept that that's just what it is. And I hate that because it's like, it sucks. But hey, listen, we live in a modern world. If you know somebody who can code, you can make your own Monster Hunter game. Steal the assets, and you could build a speedrunner's dream and have different versions of each monster. And like, there are options, right? Like, and that would be interesting. I would watch that to see like how Freedom Unite Rajang stacks up to like Monster Hunter Rise Rajang versus Monster Hunter Worlds Rajang, and see how the Lance from Monster Hunter 1 does against the Lance from Monster Hunter Tri. Or that'd be interesting, right? They can do it.
It'll be like a Mugen of Monster Hunter.
That'd be cool, right? So maybe that's something that people could get started on. But is the speedrunning community big enough to pull that off? Because they brought Monster Hunter Frontier from the dead. I didn't think I'd ever see the day where I can actually play that game comfortably, and it happened. So clearly that community is big enough, right? He shitted on the Frontier people on the video, but like, hey,
But to be fair, quickly, I don't know anything about Espinas in his natural game, but when I fought him, I was like, is all he gonna do is run at me?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
He
definitely was a Diablo
more.
He kind of made me a little big sad, but again,
His fight was not as impactful as I thought it would have been. Like, the ability to be able to burn, paralyze, and poison all at the same time was intimidating on paper. When I actually fought him, however, it was just like
it was run.
Yeah,
what am I gonna
this
do?
is not as
Espinas is a 2007, 2008 monster.
Right.
So,
but
that is true, but just like what they did with the other monsters, they could have added a little more flair to him. Like,
they could have, and they're going to probably with his subspecies, but we also got to remember that most of us, all of us in fact, and most Monster Hunter players have never fought Espinas or even knew of his existence. So
no, I definitely did it.
that's true. But then when you do
and to hold, because some people will complain that Espinas is too different. Like they changed him too much. He's not even the same monster anymore. We would have heard that shit. You can't satisfy everybody. It's impossible.
No, you can't.
Listen,
it's impossible.
I literally had a conversation with one of my friends, and she's trying to like do she's trying to create like bags with a logo and whatnot and stuff. And she was telling me that her brother didn't like the logo or whatever. So my response was, do you like the logo? Because at the end of the day, you ask people for their opinions, you're going to get 10 different answers, 10 different responses. It's going to be 50-50. It's going to be yes, they like it because of XYZ, or no, they don't like it because of A, B, and C, or it's going to be no, just because. Like, they're not going to even give you any constructive critique on it. At the end of the day, you have to focus on the people that actually like what you're presenting, and you have to like what it is that you're presenting. Um, Same thing when it comes to video games. If this is not going to be for everybody, and when you incorporate a brand new mechanic that's non-existent to some degree, you're gonna have even more complaints. It's kind of like, someone who's a technician and they're using computers a particular type of way as opposed to someone who's just using it for leisure. Like, the technician is going to have way more complaints because they have a better understanding of what it is that they're working on as opposed to the person who's just browsing the web. Same thing with Monster Hunter. It's like ignorance is bliss. If you knew why a monster did something a particular type of way, and you were like privy to it, chances are you're probably going to be like less inclined to enjoy the game because you know all of this, and yet it takes away from the natural experience of the game. Some people enjoy it, some people don't. Um, but I just say what I say to say this. Like, if you don't like it, I absolutely understand if you want to leave it alone. I understand some portions of your frustration, but at the end of the day, as I guess I don't want to speak for everyone here, but at the end of the day, the game has to appease a multitude of people, and unfortunately, within that multitude of people, speedrunners have the lowest percentage. Then comes us who actually are super enthusiasts about the game, and then you have people that just play the game as just a regular activity. It's just something to do. Um, Unfortunately, speedrunners is the minority. Will hopefully Capcom did incorporate speedruns within it, um, but hopefully they do it to the degree that you want it to be. Um,
The thing
and
with Arena Quest is that Arena Quest is a time, yes, you get graded based on how quickly you beat the monster, but you're not using your weapons, your armor sets, your creativity behind behind the avatar. Which is where speedrunning is why that speedrunning aspect is there. Like, yeah, they could go ahead and fight Rajan and get that digital S on their screen because they beat him in less than 2 minutes. But at the same time, they're running a whole armor set that's designed for Rajan to one hit KO them. Because chances are the armor set is going to be negative 25 thunder. So you
I
don't really get any real creative control when you do the arena quests. Um, so, again, I agree with you that, they can play that if they're looking for time challenges, but it's going to take away their creative aspect
yeah,
on why their armor set is the armor set people should use to get certain times.
yeah, I completely understand that, and I completely empathize with them in that regard. However, the thing is about speed runs is the accessibility. Like, with the arena quests, all these are different armors are accessible to whoever want to speed run. When it comes to that outside aspect of the game, you have to mod, you have to do X, Y, and Z just to get the build that you want to be effective. At least with the arena quest, it's a little more fair. It takes away from the customization, absolutely, which is it kind of sucks. But what it doesn't take away from is the accessibility of each and every player that actually wants to speed run. And it eliminates the elements that he mentioned pertaining to, well, there's a bull drone that's running around, or there's no bull drone in the game. The Bofangos, there's Vespoids. Like, it take away all those distractions from said monster that you're looking to, you know, subdue. So I mean, it's not the best alternative for what Femento is looking for, but it is an alternative in a sense because it was designed to be a speed run option. It sucks, but that's just how it is.
I honestly can't. I can't go to a speedrunner and say, yeah, just play arena. Like, I understand your point, but I just can't do it.
I
I
can.
can't
You know
find
why?
that.
Mhm.
Because Capcom's official events that is speedruns is all Arena Quest, and that's the company
See,
that made the game.
didn't know that.
So
That's
Didn't know
what I
that.
was saying. They
You know,
designed it in a sense that people have access to this limited amount of stuff. You don't have to farm it. You don't have to. The most you have to do is open up the arena quest. Unlock the arena quest. Excuse me. But for what these speedrunners are trying to do, specifically for Mento, it's a lot of different avenues you have to go through and hurdles to jump in order to get what you need to be effective. That
It kind of
that game wasn't that portion of the game wasn't designed for that.
it kind of feels like how I feel about Smash Bros, where competitive, and flame me if you want, I use heavy quotations, competitive Smash Brothers is take away the stages, take away the items, take away the Smash Brawls, put it on a timer. At that point, like
Is it really
you're
Smash Brothers?
yeah, you're
yeah, you're
Smash
really,
Brothers. Yeah,
yeah.
Smash Brothers is, to me, is a party game where you have all the dumb stages that turn the controls on you. Palkia is fucking shooting cosmic beams at you. Oh, I summon fucking Lucario, Lugia, and he just wipes that Smash Brothers. And if you strip all of that away, it's just like we're trying to make
You
this
get a
competitive.
fighting game with no gravity.
And
Right.
that's perfectly fine. You know why? Because it's accessible, it's optional. There's no variable to you don't have to go through jumps and hurdles to turn off a Pokeball. You don't have to go through jumps and hurdles to make a stage flat. You see what I'm saying? Like with Monster Hunter, you have to mod, you have to get certain charms. It's so out of the way. It's too much out of the
Yeah,
way.
even with the RNG that he talked about, again, I don't agree with when he says, "Oh, you'll never get the God charm. You'll never get this. You'll never get that." I'm mocking. I'm saying it as if I'm mocking him, but I'm really not mocking him. I'm just saying, like, he
Yeah.
used the word never often, and that's not true, because first and foremost, I play Monster Hunter with a different type of love. So I understand what overlapping is, or how to overlap, the different layers of different aspects of the game. And I think it's because I play a lot of mobile games where you have to overlap. You have to overlap the things you do to get the best out of your time. So while I'm on a mission with Kong and he wants to do all the quests in that star tier, whether it's the 7 stars or the 4 stars or the 5-star tiers, while we're doing those quests, as mundane as those quests can be, I have the villager dude creating charms for me. At the same time, my farm is being is I have like the honeys and the herbs and all the materials that I need for my guns. um that is all. The argosy, there we go, is also on that timer as well. So for every mission that I actually do, there's some progress somewhere else in the game. I've never felt overwhelmed in making charms in Rise or Sunbreak. I've never felt overwhelmed, and I promised myself that I wouldn't get overwhelmed with it. And the results I've gotten? I do have an attack level 3 charm with 3 deco slots. I do have one, and that is considered a god charm.
Yeah,
I have one. And
and
it's not the only, I'm sorry to cut you, but it's not the
mhm.
only good charm I have. And I think it's because with that mentality, people just you want to have the best of the best and you want it now. And that isn't what that isn't what charms or deco farming was designed for. It was designed for you
they
to
want
keep
it, and they
playing the
want it
game.
yesterday. That's the problem.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
right.
and
That's what
and
I'm saying. That's the problem. And but that's not what that game mode was designed for. That
yeah,
game aspect was designed for you to keep playing the game, because it is designed for you to chase. It is. And you can say it's a trap. You can say it's you'll never get it. That's a negative mentality to bring into a game that's based on RNG. That's a very negative mentality. Because of, I'm sorry to keep cutting you,
mhm.
Esoteric, but
No, it's cool.
because of the charm system combined with the augmenting system for the armor sets and the weapons, combining them together, I have created armor sets. Like I have this one greatsword armor set that I'm golden on it. Like if I get focus on that armor set, I it will it's just mind blowing. But I don't need focus on that armor set. But it gives me literally all of the offensive skills that I need and all of the defensive skills that I need. I'll post a picture of that armor set for you guys. It's just mind boggling. And that is partially because I did get an attack level 3 deco. And I didn't kill myself over it. You know, I put 10 things, I put the materials in there, and I go and I do 10 quests, or I lose to Rajan 10 times in the arena quest. That counts as a cycle.
Well,
You know, it's just, I don't know. I think it's just a bunch of, it's a lot of entitlement. Sorry, go ahead.
I think I think to kind of equate it when it comes to speedrunners, like again, I'm not a speedrunner, but I'm on the outside looking in. To kind of equate what they're trying to do is it's equivalent to people running track, and one individual has only one leg to run. You know, like they have to hop. The thing is about speed running is that they want everything accessible now because they want to be able to compete. Like their game is the optimal armor, like the optimal armor and the charms that they wish to explore whatever build they need to beat a monster within less than 5 seconds or so on or whatever. That's their end game. Like so they're playing beyond the level of what the end game is.
Yeah,
The
but that's
issue
false
is
competition.
no. It definitely is false competition. I it because it's something that they created themselves. But what I'm trying to pretty much say is that it's unless you go through the level of searching for these charms and hacking the system, you may not come across the thing that you are looking for. Like you were lucky enough to get that charm, but you also wasn't working under time constraints. You see what I'm saying? Like you were working as in like I'm just leisurely playing. Like these guys, they want to be able to speed run. That's their end game. That's what they want. You know, like how some hunters rush to the end because they want that high level sword. They want to be able to buy it. Take it a step further. They want access to the charm system so that they can mod whatever it is to speed run. So I mean I don't know, man. It's
To
yeah.
me, this is what happens when the game becomes a numbers game. It stops becoming, and to a certain extent, speedrunners have to think like this, and that's why I can't be a speedrunner. You know, as part of this group, I'm one of the guys that's very analytical. I want to play efficiently. I want to play at top level for a dedicated but ultimately casual player. But when the game becomes too much about numbers, you don't see the Raphalos anymore. You just see an HP bar. And to me, that takes away from the game. I love Monster Hunter because I love seeing these monsters. I love seeing I could see Silver Raphalos 20 times and it's just like that supernova's cool. Whether it's
Mhm.
forced, whether it's, he's status immune during it, it's
Mhm.
still cool. But when it becomes numbers, it's just like, oh, okay, the big HP bar is doing the annoying thing. How much time is that How much time is that wasting? That's wasting 5 seconds. Oh boy, okay, this run is ruined. It's a different
Mhm.
mentality that you have to have as a speedrunner, but to me, it takes away what you love from a game. So that's why I can never be a speedrunner because I just love the world of Monster Hunter. And sometimes I want to play a suboptimal set. Wolf has talked about his support set. A speedrunner will
Mhm.
go, you're going to get horrible times with that. But Wolf will go, yeah, but I have fun though.
Yep.
It's fun and it's different. So it's just two different mentalities of players, and we can agree on certain. Yeah, that is kind of bullshit. yeah, that's a little bit unfair. But at the end of the day, speedrunner mentality and a normal player mentality, they'll just never meet. So I can see his gripes, but at the end of the day, it's still Monster Hunter. I'm still looking forward to Flaming Espinas. I'm still looking forward to the Misu variant because it's gonna be cool. Will I get best in slot armor out of it? Maybe, maybe not. But the fight's gonna be cool and the monster's gonna be. That's just my closing thoughts on the whole thing.
I agree.
completely get that. I just think that there's nothing wrong with. Well, I mean, of course, we don't think anything is wrong with speedrunning here. I think I can speak for that. It's just not our cup of tea. I just feel like the platform in which that he's attempting to do it is a lot of struggles, and if you choose to go down that route, you're just gonna have to embrace all those struggles. Again, it's not a Mario game where you have all the things at your disposal. It's not hell, it's not even a RPG type of game where you know the most you would have to do is get a certain type of armor by defeating an enemy. You know, everything else statistically is guaranteed when you level up and things like that. It's just Monster Hunter has way too many variables. You're playing against a slot machine that the percentage can be either relatively high or relatively low in your favor. You're just gonna have to deal with it. You know, that's
Yep.
just my take.
I have no closing thoughts. I've said what I've had to say. So, Wolf, do you have anything you want to wrap up with before I close it out?
No, but I mean, I'm gonna continue to enjoy the game as is. Um, I feel like if you're as much as you love a friend something, if you feel like it's no longer enjoyable, then you have to put yourself in a mental space to release it and find something else.
Yeah, it's
That's
fine
it.
if it's not for you anymore. It's
Yeah,
perfectly fine.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, there is a thin line between love and hate. That saying exists for a very good reason. So, for anybody listening who's made it to this point, thank you very much for listening. Hopefully, you gained some level of enjoyment or entertainment from our conversation. If you want to check out the video we're referencing, both of the videos are going to be in the description below. So check those videos out so that you can understand, what we're talking about. I think that's important. And yeah, so there's that. Subscribe. We're going to be posting podcast videos every week. So every Wednesday at 12 p.m. We also do 2-minute reviews on various games that we play or various products that we use. So check us out for that content as well. We also we also have social media. So we're on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. We also run a Discord as well. Esoteric streams on the main channel on Twitch TV. That's Logical Gamers on Twitch TV. So check him out, follow him, so that you're updated as to when he goes live. He streams every, I think I can still say this, right? Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 p.m. That's subject to change, but we'll see. As of right now, that's the schedule. I also stream from time to time BlankaKong on Twitch. So follow me when I go live. I usually play retro games. So with that being said, guys, thank you very much for having a great conversation, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Till next time.
Take care.